Characteristics of quadratic functions. Okay, so we have two vocabulary terms today. We have zero of a function, and that's where a parabola crosses the x-axis. Okay, so where its y value is 0. All right, so if I look at these three parabolas, this green parabola would have a 0 here and here. This orange parabola would have a 0 right here at its vertex, and this blue parabola would have no zeros. Okay, and those are the three possibilities. You could have a parabola without any zeros, a parabola with 1 0, where its vertex is on the x-axis, or a parabola with 2 zeros if its vertex is above the x-axis and it opens downward, or below the x-axis opening upward. Our second term is the axis of symmetry, and this is a line that runs through the middle of the parabola. Okay, it runs from the vertex, okay, all the way down through the middle of the parabola. Okay, and actually it runs in both directions. Okay, my vertex for this blue one would be that axis of symmetry. For my green one, it would be right there. For the orange one, it would be right there. Okay, and because these run through the axis, they always have the same value as the x-coordinate of the vertex. Okay, the equation for these lines is always going to be x equals, in this case, 4. Okay, that would be the axis of symmetry for my blue parabola. All right. So our first concept is about finding those zeros from graphs. So when we're looking at graphs, finding the zeros is pretty straightforward. All right. We are going to come through, we're going to look at the graph, we're going to see where it hits the x-axis, and in this one it's right there. Okay, and then what we're going to do is we're going to check it. Okay, it's important to check it because sometimes the graphs don't hit right at a specific point, or sometimes it looks like it's on one point, but it actually is slightly over. Okay, so it's a good idea to check it. So in this case, it looks like my axis of symmetry runs through 0. My vertex is 0. My 0 is 0. So if I plug in 0 for x, y should be 0. And y equals 0 squared, y equals 0. Okay? And that's all you need to do to check. Okay? For this one, I couldn't use my nice clean looking graphing tool because this has a more narrow shape to it. So I'll just go ahead and tell you where this is supposed to cross. It's supposed to cross at +2 and -2. That's where my zeros should be. All right, and so if I check that, I'm going to come through, I'm going to say y equals -2 times 2 squared plus 8. 2 squared is 4, times -2 would be -8 plus 8, and yeah, that would be y equals 0. Okay, and if I look back through, yeah, if I change this to -2, I'd have -2 squared is still +4, so both +2 and -2 are my zeros. Okay, and then this last one, we can look at, we can see, yeah, it's not touching the x-axis. This shouldn't have any zeros. Okay, there shouldn't be any possible values of 0, or possible values of x that make y 0. And if we think about it, this is always going to be, this -x squared is always going to be a negative number. Okay, so I always have a negative x there. And at the least, so at 1 or 0, this -x squared and this x are going to cancel each other out, right? And -4 is going to bring me down into the negatives. If I'm opening downward, I start with a negative y. I'm never going to cross the x-axis. Okay, so there won't be any zeros.